was your shop duties? What would your typical day for Roger Wasson in Maurice Petty's engine shop? What would
And
that
I know that
consist
goes
of?
way back in the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Let me go a little bit farther. I came here, and they found out real quick that I wasn't a fabricator. Okay, I'm not a Richie Bars at all.
Well, nobody is.
You know, so they put me out, and I was doing. This was the first 2 or 3 weeks I was here. I was working on everybody's road car, and so I was working on the old Ford truck that had the tilt cab. You know, the old one they had.
Yep.
And I wasn't having a very good day. I had no idea your daddy was around, and I was really talking to this thing ugly, to this truck. He looked underneath the thing, and he said, "You got a problem?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I came to work on race cars, not on road cars." "Well, what would you like to do?" I said, "I want to be in the engine room." I had no idea really what he did. I just knew he was around. He said, "Well, get your butt over Monday morning and come to work." So I did that. That's about the third week, I guess, I was here. But we ground heads for oh man, it seemed like forever. But I'm sure that John Coble and myself ground heads, polished them, ported them. I know it was at least 4 weeks in a row, 12 hours a day. And then your daddy was doing other stuff. And then Frank Ruth, he was doing more or less the balancing of the crankshafts and the rods and that stuff. So that's what I did. And then had a meeting one day with your daddy. I thought he was going to fire me. And we went up here to Frank's, and he said, we talked earnestly to each other. And I told him, I said, "I think I can build one of these engines," you know. So next thing I knew, he had me put together what we'd call a rebuilt, you know, a rebuilt engine. And it probably went to some other guy that was lower class, you know. Thank God, I guess that engine must have lasted, because finally, one day I came in, he said, "I want to show you something." And this was probably latter part of 70, and I had my own engine room, my own assembly room. I got a picture of it at home. It was, I knew I'd died and gone to heaven on that. So I would build the engines. Now I'm going to say this, that most of the engines I built probably were for the guys in the IMCA circuit and all like that. Your daddy built, I'm going to say 99% of Richard's engines, you know. So I had
the final assembly. And
the
stuff.
final assembly and all. And then I finally got to the point that we ran dynos, and that was a lot of fun. I was in hog heaven, yeah.
Well, one of the things I want to ask you, because you was back here, when did they first get them old snub-nosed Dodges for the haulers? You mentioned the Ford earlier.
They got that the latter part of 71. Excuse me, the latter part of 70. We had, and nobody, maybe you guys know, we had Clyde. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Clyde just showed up here one day. Now, Clyde's a truck, okay? For those of you that are watching.
Hugh Hawthorne and his son Scott have Clyde, correct?
Right, it's a four-door
Yep.
ramp
Dodge,
truck.
yeah. Ramp truck.
But and that's what you went to Daytona with.
Well, that thing showed up just before Daytona, and the Ford, we still had the Ford truck, and they always got a new trailer from, what's his name?
Reed,
yeah.
Trailer,
Yeah, you'd always have a new trailer. And next thing, that Clyde showed up, and Pete's car went on it. And then later on, sometime in 70, the two Dodges showed up.
Okay.
And then
so you went back in July with the two snub-nosed Dodges.
Yeah,
with Reed trailers.
Yeah.
Don't we have a picture of those two trucks?
And I don't know where it's at,
Cars
but
sitting out in front of the
the
motel.
C-dip.
Yeah, and then there's also pictures of that with the Buddy's car. With
also, your
right.
Mr. Owens. He's
Leonard.
not Leonard. Yeah, he did all the cabinet work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so he was doing the cabinet work to get the trucks right. Now, the Richards truck had all the cabinet work on it, and Pete's truck it didn't have near the cabinets. It was more or less
parts truck.
Yep.
Yep.
And then I'm saying that in a nice way.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
Now, when you went to the races in circa 1970, did you take two spares? the engine wise
No, we took one spare
for both cars.
No, excuse me. We took a spare for each car.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just curious how they did it back then because I don't remember.
Richard's car was one engine, and Pete's car was the other engine for them. But Richard's car was the only one that had the swing out. Hoist.
The little the hook deal.
And I like the way they did it. It had Timken bearings at the bottom, just so simple.
Really?
Yeah, it had Timken, here, and at the top they had a Timken bearing, and good.
So out of all of the victories that, like Pete won all, but he almost swept all the speedway races in 1970 with the Superbird. Out of all those victories, obviously, which one would be your favorite?
Oh gosh.
I mean, do you have a favorite?
Well, the favorite would actually be Pete's because it was the first race I ever attended outside of Riverside.
I mean, how could it not be?
It's Daytona 500.
With a rookie.
Yeah, it was a rookie, and I'm saying this out of kindness. I just couldn't. I've got that thing framed in my office back home. It's that's the best one. But and then he won. Your dad tried to get Pete to slow down both races at Talladega, and he just flat left everybody.
Really?
He just
broke the draft and went on.
Huh?
Broke the draft and went on.
Went on. I mean,
I didn't realize that. Did y'all?
Yeah. No, he.
I know.
You've seen pictures with
Oh,
him
yeah.
say slow down.
Yeah, slow down.
Oh, he was cussing Pete in the pits.
Well, and speaking of Pete, God rest his soul.
Yeah, he was a super guy.
But as a kid, Mark Ritchie may have a different take on this, but Pete was always sort of our hero because I remembered him and how good that team did, and just I don't know, I loved everybody on that team, and I was just a little bitty boy, but coming over here, and I can remember you asking me, what's Santa Claus going to bring again and stuff like that, but that's how little I was at the time.
So I was a newborn when Roger.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Mark, he mentioned that
So
earlier.
my memories are of
No.
Pete Hamilton or nothing. It's it's just always seeing Dad get joy of talking about him. And hearing Richie Bars' stories. And
Or looking at the postcards of the 40 postcards.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff. That's my memories.
But I always
also.
knew that my mom and Dad loved those days, and
It was
which everybody did. The whole petty. It was just.
And that was, I guess, that was the first year Richie and Les Bars had came.
They showed up about the same time I did in December.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, I think they've been here maybe the last week in November.
And both them guys had fairly long hair, and which was kind of not in style just yet around here. But I can remember them being kind of like hippies, And
It was 1969.
I know, but,
Yeah.
but and they
I
just
got a story on that, but they called them the long-haired hippies.
Yes,
To their face.
and I remember that.
Long-haired hippies, but a story on Richie. We were down for the Darlington race following September. Well, Richie found him over in Florence. He found him a hippie shop. Okay, and that's what I'd call a hippie shop. And so he showed up at the motel one night. And a motel back then was the best hotel we could have. It was a Holiday Inn. They were just coming out, the franchises. He came out with a red, white, and blue overalls with stars. I've still got the uniform.
I've seen a picture of that.
Okay. So we all agreed that we wouldn't let your dad or Richard see him until what we used to do is just go in the truck, close the doors, and we'd change clothes on Sunday morning. We'd get the car ready. We'd eat out of the back of their car, and then we'd go in there and change. Well, we all came out in those. I thought your dad's going to flip out. But everybody loved us.
Oh, yeah.
And I still got them. I love them.
I'll be darned.
I'm going to ask a question. 1970, and Richard at Darlington had that violent wreck.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? Because they went down there and he crashed the car. I guess Pete crashed the car, and the Superbirds, they brought in the Roadrunner, and Richard crashed it in the race. What's your memories of the 1970 big Richard Petty wreck?
The week before, Richard sat on the pole at Martinsville, if I'm not mistaken, okay? And that was with the Roadrunner. And they brought it back, and they were going to delay the race. Well, Richard crashed the Superbird. We came home. All of us came home except Richard and Pete. Richard might have come back. I don't know. Anyway, And we stripped everything out from underneath the Roadrunner and everything out from underneath the Superbird, and we put the Superbird stuff underneath the Roadrunner. But the Roadrunner, technically, the wheelbase was shorter than the Superbird.
I didn't realize that.
I guess I did either.
Just by, you can ask somebody, but I'm going to say about an inch or inch and a half. And if you all remember, the left front wheel, you need to talk to Richie.
Yeah.
Make sure this is right.
Richie bars.
Yeah, Richie bars. But the left front wheel was set back to make it turn better.
For a short track.
For the short track,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
For caster and everything. So he went down there technically in a short car thing, and they never could get the thing to handle. They never could. And I always stood by your dad mainly because if something went wrong, he'd tell me what to do. I mean, I was there mostly just to repair the engine, something in the race.
Yes, sir.
And he leaned over and he says, I think they got him jacked out of the frame. And all due respects to Dale, Dale was doing exactly what Richard wanted him to do. That was before the radios. And about 3 or 4 laps later, he had the violent crash.
Oh, Lord.
And I was the second or third one there. And we thought he was dead, or I thought he was dead. I shouldn't say we. But back then they wore goggles. And I remember the goggles were full of blood. You know, and I'm thinking, he ain't going to... I threw up. You know, I did. I went back and
I guess it ain't funny, but...
No, it is now because we know what the outcome is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just threw up. And then we got home, and I was shaking. I just told your dad, I said, I need to go home for 3 or 4 days. So I went home for about 3 or 4 days, and then I came back. I said, I don't want to do nothing.
Well, you know, the video, I guess it was televised by ABC, and when they crashed the car, Richard had all them rags in his mouth. So when they cut to the wreck, he's laid out on the racetrack, and all these rags are on the track. So they thought that was blood.
Yeah.
So they cut away, and then they showed them videos of Daddy down there kicking the fire extinguisher guy because they let them
you
off.
can't breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it shows Daddy jumping in the back of the ambulance, which was a station wagon, much of a, and then riding to the hospital with Richard. That was always a violent looking crash to me. I didn't know what your memories was over
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Well, now, right after that happened, between Daddy and Grandmother Petty, they took an old basketball goal and made what would be the first window net because of that accident.
That's what I understand. I understand your grandmother made that from. I heard something about a basketball.
Right, and that's why they started, and then she sewed those pieces together, and it's still basically the same design.
She found somewhere. Now this is, I don't know. This is just according to your daddy, okay? But somehow she found the parachute material.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that. I know it was different. It just looked different than anything.
And I just heard it was parachute material, and she fabricated it.
Well, Martha Jane, she tells the story. They put all that together, and Grandmother sewed it up. But then Martha Jane took it to Random into the shoe repair and used them big sewing machines to put the double stitches on them and all
Okay.
that. So that really made it more
That was
more
great
durable.
to know.
Yeah,
That's a little Randolph County
it just-
ingenuity right
Yeah,
there.
you
And
bet
It just kept
you-
evolving real quick.
yes, it did. And
Yeah.
it happened really fast. I mean, it was.
Because-
Oh yeah, it was.
what they're getting at back in them days, they didn't have a window net in the cars, so when they wrecked and stuff, their heads and stuff would come out of the cars. They were running glass at one time at the super speedways, but then
But definitely wasn't in that race.
No. then they started taking them out. But Daddy, he said we got to do something about this.
Right.
That's when they started thinking about the window nets.
So now it's pretty much standard procedure and has been since then.
Any kind of stock car racing or any kind of closed
And
cab
it has
racing,
to be
people's
certain
got 'em.
SFI.
Yeah.
or
That's
whatever.
what I love about this. I learn every time we do this.
And I do too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
See, I didn't know about the shoe repair.
Yeah, so everybody's learning.
Well,
this,
Yeah.
this was great.
I learned that because after Daddy died, Martha Jane sent us all a nice little letter, and she detailed that whole little episode. So that was
You need to get her on here.
well, yeah.
Ain't no doubt.
We're trying to bring everybody we can that had
we're just
anything to
blessed
do with
to
the
have
family,
you here today.
No,
and,
well, thank you.
and we
It's,
appreciate you being here.
Do we have any more questions that we wanted to discuss with Roger?
Well, if we do, we'll have you back. But we appreciate you down here.
Oh,
so
well,
we
thank you. Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas
Merry
to you all.
Christmas.
Thank you. You made my day. My whole trip.
And ours too.